Mom quietly worked behind the scenes. She was the company's first bookkeeper, and while Dad and Uncle John were doing the physical work, she kept the company going. During these busy years, Mom and Dad had an open-door policy. Nick can attest to it. He was a member of the group that came. Well, although I think it was Mom who did the bulk of the work, and that would be true, looking after all the people who came through the door. Her friends from Vancouver would send their children to work at the mill in the summer, and they would live in our house. Mom also welcomed long-term boarders, foster children, and other children who needed a place to live for a time. Mom was always up for an adventure, and in the early 60s, she took her first overseas trip to Venezuela. Air travel was not common then, and her mother-in-law warned her that it was quite dangerous to be flying, let alone flying to that faraway country. It probably was. There's more machine guns in Venezuela at the time than people, or responsible people anyway. That trip was the first of many trips, but in actual fact, Mom was the happiest when she was at home, surrounded by her family. Mom loved to reminisce about the many years they were able to holiday on their boat, Pacific Pride. As recently as a month ago, Mom's eyes lit up while she recalled adventures, salmon fishing, watching whales alongside the boat in Telegraph Cove, and especially swimming in the ocean from the back of the boat. Even though she wouldn't openly admit it, Mom clearly had a goal of making 100 years. She had several wonderful celebrations and was so pleased to receive a letter of congratulations from the Queen. Mom was predeceased by her husband, our dad, Ross, in 2014. She has 6 children: Ron, née Jennifer, Esther, née Andrew, Carol, Marjorie, née John, Mary, née Doug, Louise, née Nick, and 15 grandchildren and 23 great-grandchildren.
A tribute to Eunice from her sister, Rhoda. Eunice Gorman was a loving, helpful sister for many years. She was born 3 years before me as Eunice Alice Alves, eldest daughter of Hector and Eunice Alves. Our parents spent much time on the prairies spreading the gospel. When they were absent, Eunice was like a mother to me. Eunice encouraged me to learn the scriptures and follow the Lord. When she left Carleton Sunday School, she gave me her girls' class. Several of the girls knew the Lord personally. She and Ross had me spend my summer holiday in their home, and it was a happy summer. She was a support financially during the almost 60 years my husband and I were pioneering in Venezuela. Her memory is blessed, and I will miss her the rest of my life. Her sister, Rhoda Cumming.
I am thine, O Lord.
I am thine, O Lord, I have heard thy voice, and it told thy love to me. But I long to rise in the arms of faith, and be closer drawn to thee. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to the cross where thou hast died. Draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, to thy precious wounded side. Consecrate me now to thy service, Lord, by the power of grace divine. Let my soul look up with a steadfast hope, and my will be lost in thine. Draw me nearer, blessed Lord, to the cross where thou hast died. Draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, to thy precious wounded side. Oh, the pure delight of a single hour that before thy throne I spend, when I kneel in prayer and with thee, my God, I commune as friend with friend. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to the cross where thou hast died. Draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, to thy precious wounded side. There are depths of love that I cannot know till I cross the narrow sea. There are heights of joy that I may not reach till I rest in peace with thee. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to the cross where thou hast died. Draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, to thy precious wounded side.
I get to go first? So, I'm first, and I'd like to talk about my memories of my mom, but I want to target it at the kids from Kinsley to Kiana, okay? So if you fit in that category, or if you're an adult who may have forgotten a few of these things, it's for you. So, and it's supposed to be short. First, the new baby. So, Grandma was descended from immigrants. Her grandparents had accents. Two of them had Scottish accents and two of them had Irish accents. And had any of those experiences of being separated because her grandpa was able to come out first on her dad's side and leave the mom, his wife, behind, and her mother and so on, and then went back and got them. How did he do that? Well, actually, he joined a gold rush, the Klondike Gold Rush. You may have heard of it. A ship came into San Francisco full of gold. People rushed up to up to Alaska to make some money, and the Klondike Gold Rush was on. And our great-grandpa, that's Gigi's grandpa, went up with them, and he was a carpenter, so he didn't hunt for gold, which he probably wouldn't have found. It was mostly gone. He went in as a carpenter and came back, and when he came back, he was able to bring out his wife and mother-in-law to Vancouver. He was able to build a very nice house in Vancouver on a double lot with lots of space, and so he was able to soon become the grandfather of Gigi. Well, this new baby was a baby, so they called it baby for the first year of her life, and ran into problems a year later when her sister Margaret was born. They realized they couldn't just call her baby, but then if they called her Eunice, which was her real name, that was the same name as her mom had, and that was confusing. So they did what I think this family kept doing, was they thought of a nickname for her and called her that. And the nickname they had for Grandma was Birdie, and that stuck with her the rest of her life for all the people who knew her in Vancouver. But when she met my dad, your grandpa or great-grandpa, he said he preferred Eunice, so she got known in West Bank as Eunice. Well, things were pretty good, actually, when she was that newborn and early stage, and grade 1 came along, and she got homeschooled, which wasn't really that unusual at the time. and she was homeschooled for the first term of grade 1, and I don't know why, but her mom decided after that to put her in school. So she arrived in grade 1, not knowing anybody when the others had been together for half a year, which is a bit of a disadvantage. And the first thing she was told, a boy turned around and poked her and said, "You fail?" Well, it turns out if you know your grandma at all, she didn't fail anything academically, I assure you. Don't know what happened to the boy, but anyway, the difficulty that came of this was real in that she kept skipping. She was smart, and she and 2 other boys, really, really very capable, and in anything academic, she and 2 boys got skipped ahead. And that was the rest of grade 1. But when grade 2 came along, she got pneumonia quite badly. She missed a lot of the school, and she was always apologetic to me when she seemed to see that missing school was worse than being poor at academics. So she was exceptionally good at academics, but she missed quite a bit of school. First of all, for pneumonia in grade 2. And partly to make up for that, she had a pretty good time because she had 7 maiden aunts. 7 aunts with nobody to express their love and generosity to accept their niece, Eunice Gorman, and so she was really privileged. She says she went to island after island like Bowen and the other islands on the coast that she later went on the Pacific Pride. She says she went to all the beaches in Vancouver and had a very good time. Grade 3 was great with all these single aunts, 7 of them, and she refers to it as a pampered life. And the highlight of it was that she went out to the prairies on the railway and traveled in a Pullman car, ate in the dining room, stayed in nice locations, and then most of all ended up on the farm. So she was on the farm in the prairies she even admits she caught a gopher but let it go. I think they were doing disposing of the gophers, but not Mom. She felt sad about that. And her Aunt Dossie, who had taken her, was in the overheard some people in Calgary and gave what she had overheard in the meat packing business information to her boss, and the boss gave Aunt Dossie a $100 bonus for her intelligence on the research. So the trip across Canada, they went to Winnipeg. The train was hit with hail the size of oranges. They brought some into the dining car where she was. A wonderful life at that time. And then she comes back and has to go in grade 4, and I will try and speed up here a bit. And so it was started a little bit by Miss Dove. Miss Dove was great as a teacher, but soon she was replaced by the permanent Miss Kerr. And I maybe tell you a few things. First of all, you got the strap so badly that it felt like your arm was going to fall off if you got 3 mistakes in spelling. And Mom was away quite a bit, so she didn't get the list. The list she was given was missing tomatoes. So she got 3 mistakes and was taken to the room. And Mom often mentioned this story and put in there. She protested that the list she was given didn't have tomatoes on it. And so when the teacher found that, she didn't give her the strap. But it was a tough year. She says the teacher would take the boy's head and use their nose to erase mistakes on the blackboard. She threw chalk at anybody who did anything she didn't like. She threw muddy water all over one girl, amongst other things. So I'm just warning you kids, teachers aren't like that anymore. And there are downsides in life when you have a really nice teacher one year and get not such a good one the next year. It is a bit tough, but Granny's been there. Her pampered life came to an end with the Depression. And several things happened then. Her aunts got married, 5 of them moved away out of 7. The Depression hit. She needed glasses and couldn't get new ones because they didn't have any money. She didn't go to the dentist. But the Depression also had the fact that her father went out preaching and therefore had no steady income, and he'd been a foreman in a wood factory before. And her mother had quite a bit of health problems after her next baby was born. There was an exception to this. A little while later, they went to Whidbey Island, and there's some pictures next to the cards in Gigi's home. If you're there later today, you can have a look at it. She was given a Brownie camera by her father, sent all the way from Salt Lake City, and those pictures there, I think, were taken with that Brownie camera. She also had, which she will tell you a lot about, is she had a nice trip on Bowen Island when she was right around Kiana's age, and they spent the whole summer there. her father preaching and them living there. And by the way, when she was 85 years old, we took her back to Whidbey Island, to where she'd been before. And at 85, she slept in a tent. When she was 11, she didn't sleep in a tent. She had a cabin to sleep in. And apparently the single man slept in the tent. Also, another big event for her was she was given a bicycle. She had saved up the money for it, $13. And her dad bought this bicycle for $13. And in those days, the schools, well, John Oliver wasn't very progressive, I guess, because they had called all the boys to the gym to tell them about where the bicycles should be kept and secure, but they didn't call any girls because girls didn't ride bikes. But actually, your grandma rode a bike and rode it a lot. Even her younger sisters then had bikes in their turn. So the lesson I take from Grandma's life is that things change, and they really did for Grandma in so many ways. Sometimes she said she was a pampered child, and sometimes she was stuck in a room and told she was going to get the strap for spelling mistakes. I think that what sums up part of her life is, I think you said, Eunice is a brainy last. She'll soon be head of the class, or something to that effect. She spent her time at the top of the class, graduated from school at age 16, and promptly went to work. The regret she had, she said that when she saw lists of her friends graduating from UBC, she certainly wished she'd been on the list. She always wanted to be a nurse, but she married. My dad was so quick with his proposal that it kind of caught her off guard, and she was married in a whirlwind and up to the Okanagan, where life wasn't conducive to becoming a nurse or graduating from UBC. So your parents can help you with what it was like after she was older, but that's who I remember my grandma from what she said and has written. She's, by the way, written a very comprehensive list of her life, so if you'd like to read it, your parents can help you with it. Thank you very much. Esther?
Okay, I'm going to talk about Mom as a mother. Just my focus as the oldest daughter. Mom was a storyteller. She was always telling stories, and they were about family, about history, about events of people that she knew, about people that she read about. But she didn't gossip stories. The stories always had a point, and she was always wanting a worthwhile conversation and something that would teach a lesson, and that's why she told stories. She was also very forward-thinking. I mean, Ron's kind of alluded to that, but she encouraged us as her children to look beyond, even though she loved where she lived, look beyond here, look forward, look out, enlarge your viewpoint. But then I think she regretted it when some of us were all over the globe, nowhere near West Bank, especially when it was really difficult to communicate. She was also a teacher, not a school teacher, but she taught all the time. And I remember one time when I was quite young, she had gone to Kelowna for her weekly or monthly grocery shop because she couldn't get over there very often, but found a pomegranate. It was the first pomegranate she'd seen in a store. She brought it home. Out comes the Encyclopedia Britannica, down on the living room floor. Kids come round, read about it, see what it is, and after we'd read it from the Encyclopedia Britannica, then, of course, out comes the Bible, where our pomegranate's mentioned in the Bible. So she was trying to teach us with any opportunity she could, and then she also encouraged us to have extracurricular education. So music lessons, swimming was really important for her, that we learn how to swim well. And she even had us do knitting and sewing lessons, some of us. And I think the reason the sewing was because when the older ones of us were young, she had very, very little cash to buy clothes. It was a struggling time of the startup of the mill, and the fruit hadn't really started to reproduce again. But she took her coats and her dresses that she'd had when she was a working person in Vancouver, cut them up, and we wore coats and dresses, and Ron wore shirts made out of her clothes. Because she didn't have any cash, but she was very clever, and she had always bought quality, so what she had bought in Vancouver was still good to make us good coats. Then Dad, he was the one who planted the garden. Mom wasn't a gardener, but she was a real harvester. and nothing was ever wasted. You could always find some good bit out of every single bit of produce that she could find. And, she taught us skills to run the house, whether she was there or whether she wasn't, whether she was working on mill books and somebody, please, get the dinner ready. We had learned how to do that. And in this harvesting aspect, I remember one time she brought a big pail with leaves of beets or something sticking out the top of it. She dumped it out on the sink, and out came a snake. Well, the snake slithered to the floor. She just stomped on its head and quoted the Bible verse about crush the serpent's head. Nothing phased her equilibrium. Not the snake, not the heifer that had to be kept in the basement near the sawdust fire furnace for the winter because it was such a cold winter. Not the chicken that I think I'd brought in. Dad had chopped its head off. I brought it in. Mom puts it in the pot of boiling water on the sawdust burning kitchen stove, but the chicken flapped around the kitchen. She just caught it, put it back in the pot. She just handled everything calmly, coolly, and another way she was trying to teach us was, I remember she would iron and go through our spelling lists because, as Ron mentioned, spelling was important. And she did her best to teach us grammar. Days after her mother